All right. Hello, everyone. Glad to see you guys here. Bear with me as I am a newbie to all of this YouTube stuff, and I have my Jedi Master, my friend Micah here, telling me all about how this works and how I can start to use some of the technology a little bit more, switching away from Facebook and over to YouTube and some of this other stuff like StreamYard. So a couple of things I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight. First of all, the main thing is if you aren't already, make sure that you go and hit the subscribe button to this channel. Hit that little notification symbol so it tells you when we do have a live coming up. Also, I put in the description the link to the 2A EDU channel. And so you can just click that and take you over to his channel. And that way you can hit the subscribe button as well and hit the notification button. So when he goes live, that you can get the notifications on that as well. I know a lot of you that are here following me, many of you are brand new to this whole YouTube thing. I basically got you kind of new to the whole Facebook Live thing, and now switching over to the YouTube Live thing. I'm just teaching you guys a lot of new stuff, and so Micah's teaching me, and it's all good. But anyway, so hopefully that'll be able to explain enough to you guys to get going. So as we get started here tonight, just like the description mentioned, there's just a few key topics I guess we wanted to cover. Of course, we could probably talk on any of those for an infinite amount of time. But the first one being Election Day. Holy crap. In 4 hours and 10 minutes, it'll be Election Day, and officially. And we've had some scary things happening here in Michigan. I know I have some subscribers that are outside of Michigan, and I think you have a lot of subscribers outside of Michigan too, don't you?
Yeah, but you know what's encouraging? I've got subscribers, friends with YouTube channels in Missouri, other states, and they're now doing videos about what's going on with Benson and Whitmer and Nessel and Michigan. So the whole country is looking at Michigan as like, is this still America? So, yeah.
So anyway, so for most of you, I think, are from Michigan and you're directly impacted by this. But like he said, even if you're not directly impacted by living here in Michigan, yeah, what happens here, if it's allowed to stand, obviously it's going to happen in your state too. So, so we have some good news, which is as of right now, we're still allowed to exercise our constitutionally protected God-given freedoms, including the right to bear arms when we go and vote. But so Mike is going to get into a little bit of that. And Micah, did you want me to talk about, I was hoping to talk about some of the court decisions, that side of it, and then have you kind of give more of the, I don't know, like maybe more of the discussion of the background, maybe?
Yeah, I have here some letters, coming from an attorney's office that was opposing Benson. I have Sheriff Mike Murphy. I have the Organization of Chiefs of Police. So I can give you some of the other information too, after you get through the case itself.
Okay. So basically, for everybody that's out there, a lot of you know some of the basics, but we have trial courts, we have appeals courts, and then we have a Supreme Court. Here in the state of Michigan, if you're suing, say, the Secretary of State or the governor, the trial court level is Court of Claims. A lot of people get that confused with Court of Appeals, but it is separate. So the Court of Claims, basically what happened when Secretary of State Benson issued the open carry of firearms at polling places on Election Day prohibited, lovely document. That was on October 16th. And just very briefly, the biggest points about that was that she says, first of all, that she's Michigan's chief election officer. I have a comment on that. But the open carry of firearms on Election Day in polling places, clerk's offices, and absent voter counting boards is prohibited. and that she's doing this to secure the full and free exercise of the right to vote. Kind of funny that for those of us who enjoy having all the rest of our constitutionally protected freedoms that were, according to her, we have to choose between the right to bear arms or the right to vote. It's kind of sad, and she says the reason is the presence of firearms at the polling place, clerk's office, or absent voter counting board may cause disruption, fear, or intimidation of voters, election workers, and others present. So your irrational fear is now allowed to be used as a weapon to squash the constitutionally protected God-given freedoms of other people. Did you know that? Isn't that great? That's according to the Secretary of State, anyway.
And according to Nussel, because Nussel said that she was fully backing her, and the state police, which were all 3 defendants in the court case. So I think we need to include them in on it too, because they all went along with this.
Yeah.
She says here, I would note in her directive, she says the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and Michigan State Police are working together to ensure the uniform enforcement of these requirements. So that's in her own little letter here.
Yes. I was just looking at who the named parties were. Oh, it's because did I grab the wrong one? That's special. I grabbed one of my other cases that I was reading. That's why.
See, I have the 3 documents here. The one that comes on her official letterhead.
Yep, that's the one I was reading from.
And then there's this one that is kind of the meat and potatoes version of it. That also came directly from her site. And I have highlighted there where she's basically saying that she's speaking, with the Attorney General and the state police here.
Yes.
And then I have the sign that was supposed to be, and we better not see this posted tomorrow. This is what was ordered to have been posted, this sign at all of the polling locations.
Yes. And I was just trying to see if I can find here the case that I had printed earlier. Looks like I can't find it too easily, so I'm not going to worry about it. But basically, what happened in the Court of Claims was that the trial court judge said the Secretary of State cannot do what she did, not because it violates our Second Amendment rights or our rights under Article 1, Section 6 of our state constitution, not because she is not allowed to make laws at all, ever, because she's a member of the executive branch, and Article 3, Section 2 makes that illegal for her to then also exercise legislative powers, which is essentially what the Supreme Court said about why the 1945 law is unconstitutional. No, he said, you didn't follow the Administrative Procedures Act. If you want to make a rule like this, then you have to go through the Administrative Procedures Act and jump through a bunch of hoops and check a bunch of boxes, and then you're good to go. So it was actually a pretty terrible decision. A lot of people were really happy, and I was secretly crying inside when I read it. Then the Michigan Attorney General said that she was going to be appealing that right away, which she did. In fact, I didn't even realize that she had filed the appeal. And the Michigan Court of Appeals came out on, when was the 29th? That was Thursday?
29th.
Yeah, Thursday. So on Thursday, they issued just an order. There was no opinion. And it was signed by the presiding judge, Judge Meter. But this was a 3-judge panel. And on that panel was Brock Schwartzel, who is one of the candidates, one of the 2 Republican nominees for Michigan Supreme Court Justice. So basically what they did is, and keeping in mind, I believe the only amicus briefs that ended up being filed in this case, because it was done in such short order and you can't really know about it until you find out it's happened, and then you can assign yourself as an attorney, for example, to the case. Well, I just found out that it even had been filed, let alone, assign myself to the case. So I'm assuming that's why there were no other amicus briefs filed. And I believe the only amicus briefs then filed were basically buddies of the Secretary of State on this one. At least one of them was. So it's a pretty, let me just go to that. It is a pretty simple order. It says that the motions for immediate consideration are granted. So in other words, the Secretary of State's motion to appeal very quickly was granted. The motion to file amici curiae briefs in support of the application, again, these were supporting, they were buddies of the Secretary of State on this issue, that was granted, and their briefs were then allowed. And then they continued, though, to say that the application for leave to appeal is denied. So what they did here is they granted the request to make a determination very quickly about whether the case would be accepted for appeal, and then they denied the appeal. But they did go one step further, and they said that we wish to clarify two important points as Election Day rapidly approaches. First, while the Civil Rights Amicus Brief raises legitimate concerns about voter intimidation throughout this country's history, the Michigan legislature has given the executive branch important and necessary tools to prevent voter intimidation. And so they're kind of naming some. Voter intimidation is and remains illegal under current Michigan law. Now, at first, before I go through, well, I'll finish this part and then explain something. Second, brandishing a firearm in public is and remains illegal under Michigan law. Accordingly, anyone who intimidates a voter in Michigan by brandishing a firearm, or for that matter, by threatening with a knife, baseball bat, fist, or otherwise menacing behavior, is committing a felony under existing law, and that law is and remains enforceable by our executive branch as well as local law enforcement. So the important part about this is, at first I thought they were getting at what the trial court judge was saying, which was the executive branch has been given all kinds of authority to do things by the legislature. The trial court judge, though, was talking about the Administrative Procedures Act. So the legislature gave the executive branch apparently all this authority under the Administrative Procedures Act, even though it's entirely unconstitutional. Not that we've had a lot of judges admit that, but it is. So I thought that's where they were going when I started to read this. And then I realized that what they're saying is, no, we have laws on the books. So the legislature gave tools to the executive branch to ensure there is not voter intimidation. Namely, it's illegal to brandish a firearm, and it's illegal to use voter intimidation. And if the executive branch wants to use those two tools, those laws that make those behaviors illegal, their job is to use those tools to then enforce those laws, as the executive branch is supposed to. They're supposed to enforce the law. That's the whole point of the executive branch. So I don't read this as being any kind of, bigger grant. I'll just kind of focus bigger on this for a moment. It didn't really get much bigger, did it? So at any rate, it's a good thing. It's a rule of law type of situation. And I was going to check one thing for you guys about this. So before you give any additional analysis on this point, Micah, give me 1 second, okay? Because I want to stick with this thought, and then we'll have you explain some of those other things.
Sure.
So, okay. I am just double checking a court rule that I believe to be the case. That would explain if this is truly unanimous. Oh, it's already on the same page. So, okay. So I don't see what I was looking for, but basically, if the what I was looking for is the rule that talks about whether if a judge or justice, like say with the Michigan Supreme Court, if there's a majority opinion issued and there's a justice that wants to have a dissenting opinion about that, or they don't agree, there's a rule somewhere that says that that justice then has to write and file a dissenting opinion to explain why he or she is not joining in the majority opinion. And that's with opinions. What I couldn't think of off the top of my head is if that also applies to just orders, because what this is not an opinion, it's a court order. What they did that's a little bit unique is they kind of gave some a little bit of clarification or background or whatever that looks more of like an opinion, but it's still technically an order. So with that being said, I can't tell you for sure then off the top of my head if this would be in fact considered a unanimous order where you can give Brock Swartzel credit for joining in the discussion there. It very well could have been a 2-1 decision that he was not approving of, but for all intents and purposes, it does appear that he was part of a unanimous panel that agreed because there was nothing else written. Again, if you look at the case that was heard by the Michigan Supreme Court on September 9th, and then the governor, that was decided on October 2nd, and the governor filed a request to have her unconstitutional executive orders given additional time to be more unconstitutional. In the court's order that came out about that, I believe it was Justice Bernstein was the only one that issued a dissenting. It was not even an opinion. It was a dissenting comment, essentially, to one of the 2 orders that came out that day because of that issue. So it was an order. It wasn't an opinion. And yet he filed a dissent. And so if that's why I'm kind of thinking that in the event, even though it's not an opinion, it's an order, Brock Swartzel is probably on the same page with the presiding judge, Judge Meter, about this. And so keep that in mind when you go to the polls tomorrow and you are considering whether you want to vote for Judge Swartzel to be moved up to the Michigan Supreme Court. As far as where this stands, I will go to the Michigan Supreme Court, and you can see the Secretary of State case is listed right here. I'll scroll down just a little bit. This has the case in general. There are 2 cases that were consolidated, essentially. And you can see that the Michigan Attorney General filed an emergency application for leave to appeal. So she filed this document right here, 68 pages. Plus, there were probably additional attachments that I don't have here. This was filed on the 29th at, I guess it was the same day. So, and relief requested no later than 10 a.m. on Monday the 2nd. Well, obviously it's past 10 a.m. on the 2nd. So we know there's at least no relief posted. Now, I will say this right here on this page. This is the main page of the Michigan Supreme Court. And they have these informational pieces about what's new. There usually are not cases here that I have seen. These are just, it's an unusual year. There's very hot topics going on. So how we can vote is something everybody's interested in. The whole emergency orders issue is something somebody's interested in. Same thing here. This is the legislature's lawsuit. So you can see the case that the court had oral argument on September 9th. This was the original United States District Court order and all the briefs and things. You can see my initial brief was filed right here with Restore Freedom. And They asked us to do supplemental briefings, so I submitted my additional supplemental brief right here. They came out with the opinion of the Supreme Court. Then she filed a motion, the governor did. The legislature answered, the plaintiff answered, the attorney general responded, and then I filed Restore Freedom's response to the governor's motion. And then this is the Supreme Court's order on that motion. So the thing is, typically speaking, when you see this opinion right here, the day that that was entered, or the day that was entered on this website, I, along with the other attorneys that were on the case, got a copy of that the day before everybody else did. So
I will say one thing, though, the way we were talking about earlier, just to let everybody know, I don't know how this is. I will just call it good buddy system. I'm following this Twitter user. She's a CNN employee. Somehow she's been able to tweet all of the steps of this case, usually 8 hours in advance of it actually getting published online on these sites and like official sources. So apparently there's a time from within the inner circle realizes, what's going on, and the time that even the public taxpayer websites get informed about it, right?
Yeah, so that is very interesting. Kind of like how, the original, this decision right here was sent to me at, 4:35 p.m. on Friday, October 2nd. And yet the governor was doing a press conference by like 4:45 p.m. within minutes. So she somehow had time to get the decision, see that it was there. I mean, somebody had to be like gluing their eyes to the computer screen,
right,
read the whole thing, come up with an analysis, schedule a press conference, and have time for all the press to suddenly be there.
Don't forget about assembling the dog and pony show. They had them there too.
Mm-hmm. All within like 10 minutes. So that is an interesting timing issue. But there is a court rule, though, that specifically says, and it's one of them that we actually talked about in these very briefs right here. In fact, hold on a second. Yeah, I was wondering if I talked about the court rule in here, 7.315C. Okay. Anyway, that talks about when they post the decisions. So the decisions are typically, like I said, they're sent out to the copies, to the parties, and then usually the next day they then get loaded to the site and you would see them. So the reason why I'm boring you with all that fun logistical stuff is, let's say we know the court didn't make any decisions yesterday. It was Sunday. But let's say the court was in session today, the Michigan Supreme Court, and they went ahead and they actually made a decision on this right here, but it somehow didn't show up here because it's going to show up tomorrow because it takes a whole nother day to show up for the public. That's where there might be some problem. But Mike, you said your inside person there, they didn't say anything about the court making a decision on this yet?
I was looking at their Twitter account just a few minutes ago. I see Linda in the chat. If you could check her Twitter and let us know. I wanted to mention one more thing too we might have taken for granted to make sure the audience realizes. You'll know more about this than me, but I know there's a law in Michigan that says if it's to do with things with elections, that the courts have to expedite it as fast as possible. And that's why this is all going so quick, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you miss the first part of that? That was a question you said. You were just asking.
Yeah, I just want to confirm I'm correct. There's a law in Michigan that was passed by the legislature that says that anything to do with courts and elections, any of this that's to do with an election, like Benson's orders, has to be handled in an extremely expedited fashion, right?
Correct. So, yes, anything to do with the election, because you can't pause the election just to wait for a court proceeding to, be resolved. They do have a law on the books that says you have to hurry this up. You have to make sure this case is heard as expeditiously as possible. Now, the thing is, on this, I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm not sure if this is one that does automatically get uh, if there's automatically going to have the opportunity to have it decided by the Michigan Supreme Court. I believe, just like in 98% of other cases, the Michigan Supreme Court can go ahead and decide they're not going to even hear the case right now, just like they did to the legislature back in June when they said, hey, can you take this case before the Court of Appeals hears it? I mean, it's a slightly different procedure, but the point being, they said, nope, not going to hear it right now. So it could be, there's very limited circumstances when the Supreme Court has to take on a case. But anyway, that's possible they have done so and it's just not made public yet. But I'm thinking they would not have done that because, again, the public would not be aware until at best the day of it being implemented upon them. I just don't see that happening at this point.
And then one other thing that kind of dovetails with all this, maybe the reason why the appeals court, it was so short, their text, is because they just didn't have enough hours in the day to type a 37-page opinion, or, because it's so close to the election.
Yeah, and that could very well be, of course, this one was issued on the 29th, and that's the same day. Oh, look at that. That is, I did not realize that. Can you see that on my screen?
3:54 p.m.
That says exactly when it was signed. That's interesting.
So they did this very quickly, which I like these really clean, simple court orders like this because there's not a lot to misconstrue the way I'm reading this.
Correct. So, yeah. So, again, I don't see any response from the plaintiff yet because, well, I don't know why. I guess I could try to text or email and see if I get an answer, but I'm assuming.
Yeah. I have an update in the chat. Her post from 1 hour ago, this Inside CNN correspondent just posted and said, Michigan Supreme Court has yet to weigh in on efforts to reinstate a ban on open carry of firearms at polls, according to state officials. This is like Nestle's little insider reporter person.
Okay.
Now that she's saying this in a negative way, they want the Supreme Court to jump in because if the Supreme Court does nothing, the order remains shut down, right?
Right. So anyway, in the end, we can't make you any guarantees, of course, but we have a 2A expert in that sense. You have me, the constitutional attorney, and together we're telling you either way you have a right to carry, but the way that it looks right now, you shouldn't be able to have any, there shouldn't be any kind of government harassment on that right at this point, because I'm hoping that all of the county clerks have been properly instructing their polling precincts that, hey, this is where things stand. So you have to just go with what the court said, in the latest court order.
I hope that she hasn't already, these little signs that I had held up earlier that were ordered by her to be displayed. I'll hold it up in front of the camera for everyone to see one more time here. This little sign. I hope they don't already have these plastered because I've seen this happen on state levels before where something gets struck down by the courts and then they just say, well, we'll just keep the sign up anyways until they force us to take them down. I've seen this in Michigan and in other states, these illegal signs that just somehow linger. So.
Sorry, I was figuring out the one of the things you hadn't shown me yet. So your young Padawan is learning very quickly here, but I love this comment. I never quite thought of it this way, but quite frankly, this might end up in a brief to the Michigan Supreme Court or even a brief to the United States Supreme Court. We'll see. I'm working out what my next steps are, but that's a whole other scenario. I love that though. In fact, I don't know how to do a screenshot. Micah, do you know how to do a screenshot right now?
Yeah, are you on a PC?
I am.
Hit the print screen button. It should be over there.
Oh, I do have. Okay.
And then you can paste it into Paint or whatever after.
Sweet. Well, just don't let me.
We'll get this later. This is part of the permanent video. So when you go back and rewatch it, that'll be on there.
Is it? Oh, fantastic. Yeah. That's great. Okay. So, all right. So that was the biggest. I feel like we're missing some aspect of that though. Oh yeah, you had stuff that you wanted to share on about that part too, right?
Yeah, I had a few things I wanted to share. regarding the propaganda side of things. I think it's feeding back through your speakers now. You got it? Okay. So if you guys look back when Catherine was talking about this original order, I'm just going to call it order in hand quotes, edict, whatever, right? So she was basically saying that this is the safety of voters and that it's intimidation just to have a gun, right? Well, as the appeals court said, brandishing is already against the law. So if anybody's truly brandishing a firearm, they can already be arrested, booked in jail accordingly, because that's a felony. Now, what is brandishing? Because here's where a lot of people get it wrong. And this current Attorney General and Secretary of State, they're trying to say that just people even having a firearm on their body as peacefully as they would carry it, that somehow makes a threat and is brandishing. Well, we have an Attorney General's opinion. And this is kind of ironic. Jennifer Granholm, do you guys remember her? She was the former Democrat governor of Michigan. And before that, she was the Attorney General, and she was a real beauty, just like these other ones we have right now. But she was asked a question because they say brandishing is illegal in Michigan statute, but they don't truly define what brandishing is. So that's what the Attorney General does. They get asked their opinion, they put their opinion, and in the absence of a statute that clearly defines, these actually hold force of law, or the courts are directed by them, however you want to look at it, right? Well, when she was asked in 2002, what does brandishing mean? She agreed that the legislature in MCL 750.1 didn't completely define it. So to sum it up, what she basically said was this: in absence of any reported Michigan appellate court decisions defining brandishing, so there's no case law. I hate that word, but there's no case law. It is appropriate to rely upon dictionary definitions. People v. Danio. Now, that was a Michigan case that said we should rely on dictionary definitions. So using that court case as precedence for this, she goes on to say, according to the American Heritage Dictionary, second college edition, 1982, page 204, the term brandishing is defined as 1, to wave or flourish menacingly a weapon, or 2, to display ostentatiously a menacing or defiant wave or flourish. She goes on to say this definition comports with the meaning ascribed to this term by courts of other jurisdictions. For example, in United States versus Mormon, the court recognized that in a federal sentencing guideline, brandishing a weapon is defined to mean, in quotes, that the weapon was pointed or waved about or displayed in a threatening manner. So this is the guidance that the courts have to go by right now, unless the legislature adds to that public act. So to put it in layman's terms, if you're not flourishing, waving wildly, if you're not directly pointing it at someone and threatening them with it, it doesn't matter what the person's perceived feelings are. If they see a cleanly, properly holstered sidearm on your hip and you're just going about your business, it doesn't matter if that person's scared and they're peeing their pants. The Democrat AG herself said, no, unless you're flourishing it menacingly, it's not brandishing. So I think people need to remember that, right?
I'm sorry. Could you say the pee your pants part one more time? It was just too funny.
Just because the person's peeing their pants from a safely holstered firearm does not legally mean that their feelings get to redefine it as brandishing.
Yeah, I had a Washington, D.C. reporter reach out to me today and wanted to talk about that particular aspect. And you said it so much better. I'm sure she would have quoted me right away if I would have said it that way. But I said, legislating based off of, or regulating the people based off of one person or one group of people's irrational fears is truly not a justification for squashing or trampling or diminishing the rights that are guaranteed to us under the Constitution. If you're too afraid of people exercising a right that is guaranteed to them under the U.S. or Michigan constitutions, you are more than welcome to go to a different country, because there's a lot of socialist countries that are out there to protect you. Their job as their government is to help you live your life in a way that they have deemed appropriate. So if you like that kind of big brother or parenting or mothering from a government, I can help you find one. We'll send you there. But when, as Rudy Two Moon points out here, government made breathing a finable offense. They finally figured out how to tax the air. I mean, that's it. If they're going to do that, yeah, clearly they're going to try to stop you from carrying your firearm when you go to the polls. And here's the thing. They asked me, why do I feel like I should carry, or basically her question was, we have volunteers that are circulating the Restore Freedom Initiative petition tomorrow at the polls. And she said, well, what did you do to describe or educate your volunteers on whether they should carry a firearm or not, or, how that should go? And I said, well, I told them in the training video, at least I think I did, because I was in the car on my way to a very long day on the east side of the state. But my goal was to tell everybody in the training video, you have the right to do that. And here's where that court case stands. You have the right. You can open carry it if you would like to. Besides which, she was talking about restricting your right to firearm, have your firearm within that 100 feet of the polling precinct. And you can't do, according to state law or case law, whatever, you can't do any kind of signature gathering within the 100 feet, although that's a whole nother story. So if our volunteers are outside of the 100 feet anyway, they shouldn't have had any issues. However, logistically speaking, if you're volunteering for the day and you're there, whether it's for a 4-hour shift or all day long from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., at some point you might have to go to the bathroom. If you have to go to the bathroom, are you going to have to figure out how to, if you're carrying that firearm for your safety, you're going to have to go all the way back to your car, then lock it up, and then walk back into the building to go to the bathroom, and then walk back out and go to your car to get your firearm. And then, that doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I pointed out to her that although, that's the stance right now, I'm not telling people they need to carry a firearm to go vote, or they don't. What I told her is this: if you feel like you are, your just general stance of personal protection and safety is that you carry a firearm, or such as myself, I've never carried a firearm, but I've had a lot of threats. I've had a lot of evil, awful people that don't like the Constitution, and they don't like what I'm doing for the Constitution. And so they threaten me. So yeah, I'm going to carry a firearm to protect myself from specific recent threats. But whether it's just a general protection or, a specific thing, either way, if that's what you feel is appropriate for you or your family or the public, then that's the right you're guaranteed under the Constitution. If you don't feel comfortable carrying a firearm at all, don't practice tomorrow. Like, that's not what I'm suggesting that you do. If you haven't had firearms training, or you didn't grow up with, your family members teaching you gun safety or how to appropriately use a firearm, let's not play around with that tomorrow in the midst of everything else that's going on. That's not the point of what I was trying to suggest. Mike, I'm thinking you wouldn't suggest that either.
Yeah. I do a lot of videos to help new shooters, starting off by teaching them the rules of gun safety. So
right.
Learn all that first.
Right. But for those of you, and for those of you in the middle who, let's say you own firearms, let's say you are perfectly well trained in gun safety, but you're just someone that believes you don't really need to carry your firearms outside of your own property. It's just a home defense thing. If that's your personal perspective, I'm not trying to push you into carrying your firearm with you tomorrow. You need to do what you feel is best. It's a right. In general, though, if you're going to be someone that, let's say, this case progresses, and right after Election Day, the Supreme Court does come out with some sort of ruling and basically says, yeah, the Secretary of State can do whatever they want as long as they're following the Administrative Procedures Act. They can go ahead and stop us from carrying firearms at the polls. And you've done nothing to stop it. You didn't, show an act of demonstrating that you would use that right. You didn't write your legislator. You didn't try to do anything with the courts. You know what I mean? You just did nothing. You don't wait until the government has done something that is coming and then go, well, I'm super frustrated about it. Well, they shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and my first video I did on this, because I've done 2 videos on my channel. The first one, right away, even though I knew it was going through the courts, I said, get a hold of Shirky, Chatfield, your rep, your senator and let them know how appalled you are at what the Secretary of State's doing. Not because I think that Shirky and Chatfield are going to save us, but that's what we're supposed to do. This is our speaker and our Senate majority leader, and then your personal rep and senator if it's not one of those two. So I'm on the same page with you there.
Okay, so I'm just going to show. Is this? Hold on. How do I do this? Okay, that's how you do it. Oh, nope, that's not right. Is that legit?
Yeah, there's some trolls that are coming in here, so I'm going to get rid of this person because they've just been blasting the chat with. Yeah. If they say like one thing and they have a different opinion, that's fine. But that particular user, I just got rid of them because they've been posting them one after another.
So, and then I just hit that. Okay.
And it makes it where nobody, when it gets to the point, guys, I'm helping her moderate the chat. Look, we're all about free speech, but look, the First Amendment says Congress shall enact no law. We're not Congress. And when someone comes in here and just keeps typing so much, nobody else can talk. Your rights to chat are gone when you're stopping everybody else's right to hang out. That's how I look at it anyways.
Okay, so I think those are all the main pieces that we were trying to talk about with that aspect of it, right?
Yeah, I do have something whenever it's time, though, to add, because I've seen a couple people ask a question.
About that topic? Or do you want me to?
About the open carry at the polls?
Oh, yeah, let's do that first.
Okay, so some people are saying, look, they're saying, I have a CPL. It doesn't affect me. Well, first of all, hold on a minute. I want to get into a little rabbit hole on this. Okay, so the Second Amendment, Article 1, Section 6 of the Michigan Constitution, it doesn't say if you have money for a permit, if you have the time to go get the permit. It doesn't say that. This belongs to everybody, okay? It belongs to the single mother that saved up 6 months just to buy her pistol, that now doesn't have the $100 for the class, that doesn't have the $200 for the fingerprints and the fees that you have to pay the county clerk. So that's the first thing I have to say to that. People with money to buy permits. There is no permit according to the Constitution. Second of all, even people with permits like me, I'll give you guys my story. I vote at a public school. Now, follow me here because this sounds weird, guys. Basically, this is what Michigan law says. It says a non-licensee, which means CPL holder, okay? A non-licensee cannot open carry in a school. Even licensees, non-licensees alike, okay, they cannot conceal carry. So you can't conceal carry in a school no matter who you are if you have a regular CPL. Now, cops are different. I get that. However, the way the law reads, if you have a CPL, you can open carry in a school. Now, there was a Supreme Court case, Michigan Supreme Court case, where people falsely think that it completely just struck down your right to open carry with a CPL. It actually didn't say that. It said that they had the right to make board policies prohibiting. So I go vote at a public school. That particular public school has not made a school board policy stating no open carry in the school for CPL holders. So these last August 4th primaries, since I could not conceal carry, because that's literally what the statute says, a CPL holder cannot conceal carry in a school, but they can open carry, okay? Court said, unless they come up with a board-approved policy prohibiting it. Many schools have not. I think the court got all that wrong, but let's just get to the...
Well, but here's the thing, Micah. What hasn't actually been litigated yet is something that I think any judge who is worth their law degree, let alone their robe, would agree with, is that when you have a school or a church or any kind of other, private building that is being used for the purposes of voting, it's not a school or a church or other private building that's used for it is now a government building that is akin to a town hall, a city hall.
Reading my mind. That's what I was just going to say next. To wrap up what I previously said, though, look, guys, you shouldn't need a CPL like Catherine put on there. You don't need that for your rights. But even if you do have one, the only way I can vote tomorrow with my firearm is I have to strap it on my hip and open carry it because the statute, plain as day, says you cannot conceal. So there you go. Now, what Catherine's bringing up.
Yeah, I'm saying that's different. I'm saying you can conceal all you want as long as you have a CPL, or you can open carry without a CPL in a school on election day because it's not a school on election
Right.
day.
Had I finished my sentence, I was going to say in a school, you cannot conceal carry. Now, the argument is, and I think your argument's right, is that polling portion of the school considered a school? And my opinion would be no, but there's no court precedence on that. So
Yeah. So, but here's the thing, and let's look at it from the other perspective. If we were one of those people that said, well, we can't intermingle, well, it'd be the side that screams church and state. There has to be a separation of church and state. Well, that's not a thing in the Constitution. But at any rate, one of those people, right, where they're stretching the First Amendment, the part about not establishing a religion for the government. So if we were having voting in a church, as we do, I vote in a church, and that church is being deemed like I go into a sanctuary to vote. So if I'm going into a sanctuary to vote, and I did it the last in Belding when I lived there too, I voted in a Catholic church. If it's deemed as a church for those purposes, how could the government possibly get away with utilizing those spaces? Because all of the the left that fights for the separation of church and state as they do and everything else like that, they'd say, no, you can't do that. No, the way they've justified it is that is not a religious building for that period of time, because that religious organization has essentially leased out their space to the government. The government is now running that whole space, and the whole thing is being treated as government property for that specific period of time, for that specific purpose. So if the rule, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If they can use it as a government building to be able to bring people in without violating the first part of the First Amendment of the Constitution, then certainly it would apply so that our Second Amendment rights are not violated either by having those specific provisions, enacted or instituted for, the state law.
now here's how it went down for me. Now, I've been doing this now for years, but when I first went to carry, I have a CPL. I had it open carried on my hip. Here's why. The law says that you can leave your vehicle, if it's a school, let's just say it's a school right now and there's no voting, that you can leave it in your car in the parking lot, but that you can't then bring it into the school concealed. Now, here's how it went down for me in real life. This is why I open carry. I went there and strolled on in, and I had it open carried on my hip just because I wanted to, just because if you don't exercise your rights, they just kind of go away. So I like to open carry once in a while. So I was open carrying. It was within minutes. All of a sudden, you had the school principal, the school liaison's officer, which is a regular sheriff deputy, just right on top of me. You can't bring a gun in here. It's a school, blah, blah, blah. Well, we were arguing about whether it was a polling place or a school. But at the end of the day, I said, well, okay, I'm telling you it's a polling place and it's not a school. But even if you're correct that it is a school, I can still open carry because CPL holders can open carry even in schools. So it literally came down to the deputy said, show me your CPL, show me your papers. I did. And then he said, all right, now you can go in and vote. I did it just because I wanted to vote. Sometimes you just do what you have to do. Right. But it was another case of show me your papers.
Yep.
And that could happen to you guys. Now, I'm not telling you not to do it, but if you just stroll on into the school tomorrow, they could say, show me your CPL. And I asked him afterwards, because after they saw my papers, they're like, oh, he's cool. He's a good guy. But I said, what if I didn't have a CPL? He said, you'd be in the back of my car right now on your way to get processed. So they made it very clear I would have been arrested if I wouldn't have pulled that CPL out. Now, here's where there's another gray area I wanted to ask you. So this is how it goes at my local school. The whole school still have kids in class, all of this, school's going on. Then they just take the section, which is like the recreation center. And you use a separate entrance and you go in the gymnasium to vote. You go out the same door. Now, the way the law technically reads, though, let's just say, for instance, it's a polling place right now. Well, what if you parked more than 200 feet away or more than 100 feet away from the door? So now you're not in the polling area. You're more than 100 feet away and you parked. And you had to walk 200 feet. Technically, is that portion of the school parking lot that's not within 100 foot still a school? Because the law says you can only have that pistol in your car. So if you took it out of the car, are you technically a felon for those 100 feet that you're walking that's still considered a school parking lot before you get within that 100 foot zone? You know what I'm talking about?
Why do you want to stretch my brain this late in the day? That's not fair.
Because
No.
I think people need to know this, because there's going to be some people hawking them, trying to set them up on some of these things. It's the only reason I would bring that up.
Yeah, you're right. So,
I've heard the other side bragging on their social media. They're going to set us up on technicalities and try to get people. They've been bragging. That's why I mentioned such a hypothetical.
yeah, so you have the right to get there. So here's the problem with that. Let's say you, if you have a right to open carry at a polling precinct, and they, you end up getting a parking space that's outside of the, 100 feet, but within, still considered school property or whatnot, then are you allowed to, actually, I think we're covered, because I think even where did I just put her order? Give me 1 second. The Secretary of State's thing actually talked about it.
Reptile Guys gave you a super chat, so thank you. Look, guys, I'm not trying to get anal and bore you, but sometimes these things matter. There's people that have gotten in a lot of trouble on a technicality, and
Yeah, no. So I would argue that makes no sense, because essentially they would be treating the government. You have a right to vote, so
Yes.
they would be treating that the place to vote as like this island where you can't get to it. You have to stop exercising constitutionally protected freedoms just to get there, and then once you get there, you can start exercising them again. Well, are you going to FedEx your or take a drone that's going to carry your gun across the 200, between the 200 feet and the 100 feet from the school entrance? I mean, seriously, is that unrealistic? There's no way that they could treat it like there's a moat around the polling precinct and you're not allowed to, there has to be a drawbridge. You see what I'm saying? So
sure, easement per se.
Yeah, that it's for that limited purpose. It's not like the outside of the 100 feet, like any other day for any other reason, or that it's in perpetuity, like anywhere outside of there, as long as you're remotely going to go vote, that somehow if you're in an area that you can't carry, all of a sudden now you can carry. No, that's what would be reasonable is literally akin to a drawbridge around a moat, that you have to have a way to park in the parking lot and then get out of your vehicle and then walk up to the door, and to the point where you're within that 100 feet of, this is now a polling precinct, government controlled facility. So
now maybe where somebody could, that makes perfect sense. I'm glad you added that clarity. I think you're probably right. Now here's another scenario that could happen, and I'm not trying to push people to press this. What if they say, we're not even voting right now? We're just going to go stand like at the 101 foot point, just line up with all of our guns out, and we have no intention to vote. That may be a different scenario, right?
Yeah. So the journalist that interviewed me today, the Washington journalist that was covering Michigan elections right now, she said there was a rumor that the Proud Boys are going to Berrien County and they're going to stand out there in protest with their firearms. And I don't know whether that's true or not. And it did get me thinking a little bit, although I'm going to be honest, I didn't put a lot of thought into it, but that's essentially what you were asking. Do they have a right to do that? Well, yeah, you have a right to petition your government for redress of grievances. You have a right of free speech. You have a right to bear arms. You have a right to gather, to peaceably assemble. You have a right under our Michigan Constitution to consult for, what is the exact wording? For the public benefit or something like that. The point being, if you blend all of those together, if they're going there not to threaten or harass, but simply to make a stand, if they're literally going there to stand, let's say you, and are you specifically you're talking about right outside the 100 feet, right?
Let's say it was a school, because a lot of the places aren't schools, right? So then it's a moot point if it's not a.
Well, no, I mean, because the whole idea of carrying, well, okay, but just the idea of that could be deemed like, is that threatening?
Well, that could
Or
be
do they have
something
a
they
right?
call the cops on. Now, I don't agree with any gun control. I'm just asking you the devil's advocate question that the other side's asking, just so everybody's clear on that. I don't think any of this is,
Yeah, so let's look at it from a different perspective of not carrying guns. Let's say when I was in college, I was a political science major, among other things. And one of my assignments in my poli sci classes was to go out and do exit polling. So you couldn't do the exit polling within so many feet, but it's probably the 100 feet rule, I guess. That was a lot of years ago, 20. But the holy crap, I was in college 20 years ago. How old am I? That's insane. Anyway, so the the thought being, I wasn't there to vote. In fact, the year I did this particular exercise, I started college really early. I wasn't even 18 yet, so I wasn't legally allowed to vote. But I was there for a legitimate purpose that anybody would argue was a legitimate purpose. I was there for college class. I'm doing exit polling. Other places do exit polling though, right? It's not just for college classes. It could be for, a conservative organization. It could be for a liberal organization. It could be a particular candidate like John James for Senate or Congress, whatever he's running for these days. I can't remember. It could be Trump or Biden that have their people out exit polling in all the key states, right?
Sure.
So they have a right to do that, and it's legit, right? So that would be the same thing. If those people have the right to have that political statement or ask those political questions, right? People, of course, can say, I'm not going to talk to you. Don't ask me, who I voted for or whatever. But same way, if somebody's standing there peacefully with their firearms just to make the statement, we have a right to be here with firearms and you don't have a right to take that away from us, even if that's not their polling precinct, I would say that's just the same.
And as long as they're not falling into those intimidation laws, and we know what that would be. You kind of know it when you see it. You're flailing it menacingly, like it's pretty clear cut whether you're brandishing or you're not.
Correct. So yeah, I think that's the whole point, is that they would still be there for the purpose of the election. They just wouldn't be there for the purpose of them voting at that particular time. But that's okay, because we're often there doing exit polling or collecting signatures or something else.
Right?
Poll watchers are inside.
They're inside. That's a whole nother issue. Yeah. I don't want to just jump to another topic, but I saw something interesting that people are talking about masks a bunch here. It was just reported of somebody, a poll watcher, that just got kicked out. Whenever you're ready for that, just remind me.
Oh, well, okay. So as far as masks, can you be forced to wear a mask to vote? Absolutely not. Never, never, never. That's not even what they're trying to do. In fact, these totally unconstitutional and illegal emergency orders from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services clearly say in the exemptions, paragraph 7, that among the exemptions are if you are at a polling place for purposes of voting in an election. So you are not required, even MDHHS recognizes they cannot require you to wear a mask to go to the polls. So that's not even a question. If even the most liberal of liberals says they can't, don't worry about it.
To vote.
To vote. Now, as far as poll workers, my understanding, let me see if I can get it pulled up here.
There's breaking news of a poll watcher that got removed because her mask wasn't on. Let's see here. It says a GOP. This was breaking today. A GOP poll challenger was just kicked out of the TCF Center for not keeping her nose covered by her mask, but she shared that because she had polyps, she couldn't keep her nose covered. And then they show a picture of the cops kind of like with their little powwow around her, presumably removing her or something. Right. In the picture. So
that's insane. I'm going to okay. Can you still see me right now, or did it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm actually going to look for there was a case that was filed. The plaintiffs the named plaintiffs, Stephen Kara and Robert Cushman. I actually know both of these individuals. Stephen Kara is the Republican nominee in, I don't know what district, for state rep. And Bob Cushman is a friend of mine. We worked on the Pat Colbeck for governor campaign a couple years ago, and he's an overall advocate for voter integrity and conservative values, et cetera, et cetera. I am tapping out my computer's ability to keep up here. Can you see my screen, the search that I just did?
No.
Oh, shoot. I stopped that. Sorry. Give me a second. I'm going to go back to this view. Okay.
Yes.
So I am trying to find, is this by the most recent? Oh, boy. These do not appear to be in any kind of order. That's fantastic. Well, at any rate, there was a case filed by these two individuals, and they were suing. They sued in the Court of Claims, and they sued the Jocelyn Benson as the Secretary of State, but also the director of the Michigan Bureau of Elections. So, in fact, let me see if I can get maybe that name will give us a little bit better results here. So they sued because of some of these issues with, well, let me just read you. This matter came before the court on plaintiff's complaint for declaratory relief, and that they filed a motion for a preliminary injunction. In summary, the plaintiffs alleged that defendants' guidance to local election officials with regard to election challengers was in violation of law. In lieu of proceeding further on those claims, the parties have mutually stipulated to an entry of an order. I have an unsigned copy that I am not sure of if it is actually accepted. Oh, so this might very well not sure. So at any rate, what they were basically challenging was the concept of, in these, in all these dictates and everything, right? There was a rule that poll challengers would have to stay 6 feet away, and basically all those social distancing, wearing masks, all that garbage. That you would, if you're a poll challenger, you have to stay 6 feet away from the, the election worker that you're there essentially double checking.
Right.
And so obviously, if they're trying to do something sneaky with a ballot, and that's the whole reason why you're there, if you're 6 feet away from them, there's a lot they could be doing, and you can't really see anything. So that's what was challenged. What they came up with an agreement was still that people were required to wear masks unless you were medically unable to do so. And even then they were saying, well, but you really then need to wear a face shield. I wasn't really happy with that, but that's me. I wasn't the one arguing the case or anything like that. So I don't know if that's the final version that was agreed upon, or if there really was a final version agreed upon. My understanding is there was something put on the record in an oral argument day that's what they were essentially going to agree to. But
that's what I didn't know, because this person that was removed from the TCF center allegedly today, they did cite a medical exemption. So maybe that's where the face shield would have come into play. I don't know.
But the way that, again, I don't know if this is the language that actually got adopted, but what this says is challengers and poll watchers are required to wear masks that cover their nose and mouth unless they cannot medically tolerate a face covering. Challengers and poll watchers who cannot medically tolerate a face covering should wear a face shield if possible. So it doesn't seem possible. So to me, that's like, how can they possibly try to physically remove a poll challenger if they're not able to wear a face shield? Because that doesn't even seem to suggest anything. And quite frankly, even if you go with the the Michigan Department of Health and Human, so many different people out of the executive branch think they get to write law. It's hard to keep up in a conversation as to which one we're talking about. But
yeah,
this time we're not talking about the Secretary of State. We're actually talking about the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So this order about wearing these, item number 10 is you're exempt if you're at a polling place for the purpose of voting in an election. Item number 2 is you don't have to wear a mask if you cannot medically tolerate a mask. But the sorry, give me 1 second.
Is your assertion enough, or like whose opinion counts? Jocelyn Benson's, your doctor's, your own assertion? Like, where does that come into play with
exactly?
This?
Here's what it says. That's where I was kind of getting to. This is section 6, item number 4. And individuals, okay, so back up and say, so someone who's like a business manager or, a government supervisor, whatever, may not assume that someone who enters the facility without a face mask falls within one of the exceptions, including the exception for individuals who cannot medically tolerate a face mask. But then it continues and it says, an individual's verbal representation that they are not wearing a face mask because they fall within a specified exemption, however, may be accepted.
Hold on a minute. Our friend Jane Locke here is in the chat. Jane brings up something. She says, should doesn't mean shall.
That's what that was my point. That was my point. So it's a loosey-goosey thing that if you can't do that, you have to do this, but if you can't do it for medical reasons, then you should do this other thing. That's
I just
not
to get Jane a shout out. How's it going, Jane?
Yeah. Hi, Jane.
She's a local patriot that we hang out with a lot.
Oh, she's served as my protection at several events that I've spoken at.
I wouldn't mess with her if I was the other side.
Oh, right. I know.
Not her at all.
People think that I could be scary. Well, they haven't met Jane. I don't think so.
She's a tough lady.
So that's one of those updates. Do you think did we get to the main questions there? Because I did want to kind of give the other update on that other piece we mentioned in the description.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the chat, and there's just a debate. There's someone who says they're a poll worker and they've been instructed to wear a mask. People are still a little unclear about like to what extent do you have to or not to, but I think you just covered that pretty well.
If you're to vote, there's not even an attempt by the government to require you to do that, to wear a mask.
Working the poll, that's where it gets,
To work the poll, the government is claiming they have the right to require you to wear a mask. Do they have the right to require that? No, they don't. Give me 1 second. How do I show that? Okay, I'm going to come to that question in just a second. But do they have the right to require you as a poll worker to wear a mask? Constitutionally, no. And quite frankly, legally, no, they don't. If they're trying to blend the coronavirus issues and public health with the whole concept of, general, voter intimidation or voter safety and things like that, no, not even, that's a stretch. So is there going to be a judge out there who's going to try to agree with that or enforce that at some point? Yeah, probably. I could think of a few, but it doesn't matter what they say, because in the end, if they're being unconstitutional in their actions as well, they should also be held responsible. Thought about governors calling the winner of the state before the... What? Okay. Wow. The governor calling a winner of the state. I guess I would need the context. I mean, that sounds so ridiculous. I don't even know what to say about that.
I can explain. PA, the governor's a Democrat. You talked about these exit polls, right?
Mm-hmm.
The exit polls a lot of times from the Democrats is at the cemetery because of all the dead people that are voting for Biden. So they've already gone to the cemetery. The biggest cemetery in all of Pennsylvania voted for Biden, and that's probably why he's calling it.
You just said that with a straight face, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Because it's probably true.
Well, they do polling, of course, before the elections as well. And the thing is, where did I read that? I read somewhere that if the major polling organizations get it wrong yet again, if they get it wrong this election, they're done. Like, no one is ever going to trust political polling ever again. And on either side. Now, quite frankly, if you're truly a conservative, if you truly believe in truth and the Constitution, you probably are of the mindset to realize a poll is the results of a poll are really based out of whatever you put into it. If it, you know, and again, as part of my undergraduate degree, I had a lot of training and whatnot in statistics, A pluses, if that doesn't surprise any of you that I'm, you know, that kind of a student. And I could tell you that the statistics, any kind of statistic, I can't say it as well as I can actually do statistics, but let alone political statistics, it's literally only as good as the information or suppositions that you're putting into it. So if you're feeding a bunch of garbage or a bunch of preconceived notions into it, and that's your sampling of people that you're asking questions of or those kinds of things, then your results are going to be terrible. So, but definitely, if you go to the biggest cemetery in all of Pennsylvania and ask all of them who they're going to vote for, well, that's probably 100% accurate, that all of the dead people are in fact voting for Biden. I mean, because they know he's going to join them soon, or if it's not already Weekend at Bernie's and he's not already there. I mean, that could be the same case as well.
It's that whole thing where it's like he was a Republican his whole life, staunch Republican until the day he died, and he's been a Democrat ever since. You know?
Yes. So 40 years ago when he died. So
I do have a good question here from Leanne. People are getting a lot of grief from this. In my channel too, they're saying this. What about campaign gear at polls? Is that just meaning an actual campaign shirt and buttons? For example, Biden, Trump. What about the politically related stuff? Like if your shirt says "We the People," or
if your shirt says "We the People," please wear it. If your shirt says "I love the Constitution," please wear it. If it says "I only vote for constitutional candidates," wear it. What was it? Oh, I wish my husband was here. When we went in for I think it was a Restore Freedom shirt. I'm trying to remember. We went in to vote on, was it this time? Now I can't remember. It's either this time or it was 2018 for primary day in August. It was either August 2018 or August 2020. And my husband had on some sort of shirt for a cause that we support. So whether it's my own Restore Freedom initiative and it was this year, or whether it was 2 years ago and it was something else. And I thought ahead of time and I was like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble for not, again, because I was just being complacent. No more. There's no more complacent Catherine here. But anyway, he went in that day and they're like, you can't. Now, mind you, at the time we voted, there were maybe 2 other human beings in there that were not election workers. And that was in the 2 precincts total that vote in the same gym. But whatever, they're like, you can't be in here. He said, what are you talking about? You can't vote in here like that because you can't wear, anything politically related like that. And he's like, are you serious? So what did my husband decide to do? Micah, what do you think my husband chose to do in that moment?
He probably just stayed there and did it anyways.
No, he stripped and then he voted.
Oh, he took the shirt off, you're saying? And he still voted?
He took his clothes off and he threw it on the ground. And then he said, fine. And I was like,
well, I knew he didn't leave.
No, he did not leave.
You know what's interesting is we brought my daughter in to vote one year. And she had, I think it was in the primary, 2016, and she had a Ted Cruz sticker on her shirt. She wasn't voting. And they said that she would get kicked out, and all of us would too, even though she wasn't voting. So I don't know.
No, I think my daughter had one too, because my daughter, we've had the opportunity to meet Ted Cruz quite a few times. And, we were working on his campaign to a small degree. And so, yeah, we went in to vote, and my youngest might have even had 2 of my kids with me at the time when we voted. That would have been March of 2016. And I think I probably would have had my son and my youngest, Emma, and they had, because we have a friend, Barbara Bookout, awesome lady, who was the Kent County chair for Ted Cruz, and she was making these really cool buttons. Shoot, I wish I would have had one up here. They're really awesome. So she actually took a picture of me and Mike and Ted Cruz and said, we support Ted Cruz. And she made that into buttons. And so it was literally a picture of us standing with Ted Cruz, and one of our kids was wearing that. And they're like, you can't have that in here. And I'm like, are you for real? Like,
I thought if they weren't voting, see, I've got,
yeah.
I don't know if it'll show here. Let me see if I can get this to Cruz 2016 sticker. It was one of those.
Yep.
I've still got it on my wall.
So, yeah, so hopefully, I think that, was there another piece to that? Did we answer all those election questions or?
I'm just skimming here one more time. They're looking for, yeah, just basically not, not wearing a mask. They want to know what they can wear going in. It's basically just all those questions, which I think we covered. The mask doesn't apply to you at all if you're voting.
Correct.
If you're working the poll, in my opinion, you know way more about this than me. If you say medical exemption, I don't see anything that legally says that you have to have a doctor's note or anything like that.
No, there's nothing that says you have to have a doctor's note. Mm-mm. There's never been anything that says that you have to have a doctor's note. So, okay, so something I wanted to show everyone. I'm no longer doing screen share, so hold on a second. All right, so I wanted to show you guys this because it gets super confusing. So earlier I showed you guys this part of the Michigan Supreme Court, and go here and hit the favorites button so that you can come here and check it periodically, because this is where, like I said, they've been putting some of the hot topic stuff. They had additional cases on here that were at the first part of the summer. Those have fallen off. As you can see, this case took up a lot of briefing. At any rate, when you do that, these are not, I want to be very clear, this is not a complete listing of all the documents that were filed in the case. Anybody who filed the, like say, for example, this brief right here. By the way, fun fact, this brief right here, if you want to have an understanding of the Michigan Supreme Court Justice candidate that I am recommending over Mary Kelly, take a look at this brief, because it was, I think it's this one. Yep. This one was written by Carrie Lee Morgan. This is the libertarian, one of the libertarian Michigan Supreme Court Justice candidates. So if you're undecided, if you want some additional information, if you don't know if he'd be a rule of law judge, I had some people concerned about that because of how they took one comment on on Ballotpedia of all places. But this is his brief. This is what he wrote. He's talking about statutory construction. He's talking about the nature of legislation. This is literally, it goes to the whole basis of how he views government, and shows how look, when you're citing all these different, if you're citing more statutes and constitutional provisions than you are cases, that's a good indication that you don't think case law is really a thing. You're going to play their game, but you probably are recognizing that there's more to actual law and actual constitution than cases. So,
Wow.
Anyway, so he take a look at it. You can do a searching. I'm pretty sure. Yep, that's searchable. He did not do. No, his is not. So we're supposed to do briefs that are tabbed, like they're bookmarked. I'm just going to double check something real quick, because yeah. So see here, this was my first brief I filed in that case in August. Each of these, that's what we were supposed to do by court rules, have these bookmarked, the PDF. So that way, if you want to see, oh, the governor exceeded her scope of statutory authority. Oh, okay. And then you click on that, and then it immediately takes you to that part of my argument. So that's a little known fact. All of these briefs should have that. But anyway, so I wanted to point you to that, because that's not even what I meant to do. I just happened to see his brief in here. So anyway, if you're looking for any indication on Carrie Lee Morgan, who he is, why you should vote for him, a sample of what he stands for, not just some general platitudes. Here, he's a real person. This is his brief that he wrote. It's the one right before the Restore Freedom brief, here in the middle of this section here. But again, that's not what I was really meaning to show you. This is not the entirety of everything. So when I pointed to his brief initially, my point was to tell you that that's just his brief. His brief came with a whole bunch of appendices, and the appendices, I guess They did include two sets of appendices here, the plaintiffs and the defendants, but they have not typically shown all the appendices right on this page. This is just whatever Larry, super awesome Larry, the Michigan Supreme Court clerk, has decided is important enough of significant public concern that he's going to put it on there physically, okay? However, if you want to go and look at court opinions and court orders, you can go to the Michigan, scroll up to the top again. You can go to cases, opinions, and orders and do an opinion and order search. So then you can click on this button right here, and that will lead you to this right here. So this is where I was searching earlier about what kinds of things are, so if I wanted to search for Whitmer, things that are in the Supreme Court. Again, I'm super taxing my system because I literally have probably 45 windows open. But the reason why I'm going through all this with you guys is because I want you guys, we're so disenfranchised. People tell me, how do I find these things? How do I find these briefs? How do I find these orders? I'm doing my best to put the tools right in your hands. Apparently, I don't know how to type. Say, what? What? Did I spell?
You spelled it right. I wouldn't want to talk about her either. I don't really blame them for not bringing her name up.
Well, this sucks because I want to show people how they can search, but apparently that's not, I don't know, a thing.
Pardon me. You'd think they would have named her by name and some of the...
She did. I know she was named.
Yeah.
Now it's just going to show us all the governors, which is not at all. Okay, so this shows you why the Restore Freedom Initiative really needs to be enacted into the Constitution, why you need to sign it, why you need to help us circulate it at the polls tomorrow to get the signatures, to get this on the November 2022 ballot, because part of my amendment is to change all this government website garbage so that any government document, like all these court cases, you could easily go on without needing a Juris Doctorate like I have, just to be able to go on and figure out how to find and access a brief, a court order, an opinion, because everyone has access to it. Everyone, we, the people, are the bosses of the Supreme Court justices. Don't forget that. At any rate, I'm sure the case is here somewhere. This was one of them.
They're just calling it the governor. I thought it would usually name her.
Yeah, this is interesting. So this is the original. So this is just showing the order that came out on.
It just says governor on there. That's weird. I thought they always would say Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
I am confident. I have seen cases that were filed that it did say Whitmer. So I'm not sure what's happening, why that won't pull up. But let's just see. I know Benson has been personally named. So let's see if this changes anything. If it doesn't, then we know.
It might be EN too. Oh no, it's ON. You're right. BENSON. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. That is interesting. Well, then I don't know what to tell you, but if you do know a docket number, you can type things in there. How can you find the docket number? If I have filed some sort of brief on a case, for example, or if I have told you it's on my website and you go and find a brief or a court order, the docket numbers are right here. So for example, this brief filed by the Michigan Attorney General's office, this was the docket number for the Court of Claims. That's not what you would search because this, unfortunately, the online system I'm showing you has nothing to do with the Court of Claims. It does, however, show us things that are in the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. But of course, at the time this was filed, there was no court file number. So you can see, though, you can look up what happened at the Court of Appeals by putting in that docket number right here. So I think that's all I really wanted to share with people about that. So House Bill 6032. I did not make any friends when I started talking about House Bill 6032. I didn't make any friends at the, oh, let me switch. Hold on, I thought it was going to do it for me. Okay. So, House Bill 6032, I talked about it, I believe, on Friday, and I made it a point to share that every single legislator that was present and voting that day, Senate or in the House of Representatives, they voted in favor of House Bill 6032, which then the governor signed into law on October 22nd. What does that do? A whole bunch of awful things. But two of the most, the main provisions, I'll call it, the easiest ways to describe them. If you have any of the principal symptoms of COVID-19, by the way, who gets to dictate that? Well, the legislature did put definitions in there, but they said those are the backup definitions. Actually, the MDHHS director gets to give us the definitions of what the principal symptoms are. Don't worry, he made sure to do that in an order. He didn't pass that opportunity up. So at any rate, the principal symptoms, if you go to the CDC's website, yes, I'm not talking about Fox News or any kind of biased source. If you go to the CDC's website, they actually have a printout that compares symptoms with in fact, let me see if I can, it's so much better when I don't have to blab about it. It's just bam, right there. Michigan.gov. Symptoms, similarities and differences. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to change this yet again.
I think I'm going to get out of work for the next 2 weeks. Watch this. My shoulder hurts from working today. All right, I'm done for 2 weeks.
Yeah. So here, watch this, guys. Okay, this is great. I am going to show you here. This is the similarities and differences between flu and COVID-19. So what about the signs and symptoms? Well, both COVID-19 and the flu, if you see that right here, common symptoms that COVID-19 and the flu share. And Micah, everybody can see both sides of my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I can't see StreamYard anymore. So fever, feeling feverish or chills, cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, fatigue, sore throat, runny nose, stuffy nose, muscle pain, body aches, headache, some, blah, blah, blah. In fact, I think there might have even been, nope, I think that might be the last. So some people might have vomiting or diarrhea, though this is more common in children than adults. So differences for the flu. Flu viruses can cause mild to severe illness, including common signs and symptoms as listed above. So yeah, that really didn't tell us much there, did it? And then here, the only sign that they say different from the flu that they can associate with COVID-19 is that you might not be able to taste or smell. Wow, that sounds deadly. Okay, so it talks about how long the symptoms can appear. Well, I'm not going to go into all that for purposes of talking about this bill, but just so you know, there's not really, it's difference of wording, but it's not really a whole lot difference here. How long can someone spread the virus? Well, with the flu, you can be contagious for about 7 days after you show symptoms. I see a small hand. That's my child. Hi, Emma. If you, you don't have to shut the door. I was, just in case you're not knowing, Mommy was on a video, that's all. COVID-19, they say, how long can someone spread the virus that caused COVID-19 is still under investigation. But they're thinking you might be contagious for as many as 10 days here. How nice. That's 7 to 10 days, really, same kind of thing. How it spreads. Both COVID-19 and the flu can be spread by all of these ways right here. Sneezing, talking, coughing, being within 6 feet of each other. It goes on and on and on. So differences, it says that COVID-19 is more contagious among certain populations and age groups than the flu. And it had more super spreading events than the flu. It just means we are more hyper alert to tracking it. But that's it. There's no actual facts or data right here, right? So people that are at high, so it talks about it's more contagious and bad for certain age groups and populations. But if you go to people that are at high risk for severe illness of COVID-19 and the flu, both of them say the high risk categories are older adults, people with certain underlying medical conditions, pregnant people. And in fact, this is what I love. See how this part is not bolded? The risk of complications for healthy children is higher for flu compared to COVID-19. So if you have a healthy child and they get the flu, they might have severe illnesses or complications because they got the flu, not COVID-19. But they bold not that statement. No, they bold the next statement, that infants and children with underlying medical conditions are at an increased risk for both flu and COVID-19, because you can't highlight the part where flu is more deadly for kids than COVID. That's terrible. Why would you do that? Young children are at higher risk for severe illness from flu. Yeah, that's accurate. So they have to say something negative about COVID, of course. School-age children are at higher risk to get this MIS-C, a rare but severe complication. Now, how rare is this thing? Well, it's so rare that you literally get it. Oh, that's not it. It's over here. Sorry. 20 people. So they've had less than 1,100 that have been confirmed cases in the United States as a whole, and deaths 20.
So it's as rare as finding a good politician in the state of Michigan.
No, that's a bad. I don't know about that's just that's depressing. Let's not talk about something that depressing. So anyway, the whole point is, okay, this is right from the CDC's website, right? CDC. We have the same stuff, the same symptoms, the same everything, right? Okay. So if you go to the bill that I just had up, nope, not that one. Okay. So the bill, House Bill 6032, it says if you have any of the principal symptoms of COVID-19, then you cannot go to work for at least 10 days. You cannot report to work. Now, what does report to work mean? My dad works from home. He oftentimes has had headaches that are really not explainable. He has had times where he's got muscle aches and things like that, especially in the winter, right? That's just how the winter crud works. But if it's not medically explainable, basically with a doctor's note that says it's not COVID, he's by law now not allowed to report to work. So that means he cannot walk from his bedroom down the hall to his office and sit at his computer. By law, that's what it says. So my dad could be violating Michigan law now if he has some aches and pains and doesn't have a COVID test proving that it's not COVID-19, and then he goes into his office. That's literally what the law says. Now, let's say, let's see, Micah, we're going to say that you work at Meijer, okay? Just to make this really easy for a lot of people to understand, because you and I are both, we own our own businesses, that kind of thing. But let's say you work at Meijer, and you and I hung out earlier today, and I had a cough. I exhibited, it looked like I maybe was flushed, so maybe you thought I might have a fever. Literally, you would then be, from now on, prohibited for the next 14 days from you returning to work because you were within 6 feet of me for at least 15 minutes.
Wow.
Literally. So it is stopping the entire Michigan workforce from being able to report to work because of any kind of common Michigan crud, which we have from October through April. Like, that's just part of living in Michigan. It sucks. We all know it. We all know it's coming. We all complain about it. But anyway, so that's the one half. Now, here's the other half. If you are, let's say, you are, I don't know. I have a local butcher shop around here that my husband has stopped at to get some good steaks. I love a good ribeye. And my husband really doesn't like cooking, but he can cook a really mean ribeye, even better than Outback. I'm telling you, you should come over for dinner sometime, Micah. So anyway, If he had gone in there, let's say in March, and he wasn't wearing a mask because he wouldn't, and the owner did not require him to wear a mask then, and then an employee was secretly a huge Whitmer fan and really hates our freedoms and decided, you know what? There at the time was a government order out that required people to wear masks or even suggested that they should probably have to wear masks. That government or that employee could today, because of this bill, go and sue this local butcher shop. And the legislature says that person, as long as they prove their case that it happened, they will get statutory damages of no less than $5,000 from the employer. Kid you not. So it doesn't say that the employer had to, I forget what the actual wording is. I don't have it with me right now, but I mean, it's somewhere right here. I said it the other day in my video. It doesn't, I mean, you guys can look it up. House Bill 6032, go to the Michigan legislature's website. You'll be able to find it. But it doesn't say that it's in violation of, a state law, or even, it doesn't even spell out that it's necessarily violating one of the constitutional orders that are still in place. It could be that the employer violated a totally unconstitutional executive order that was simply before they were declared unconstitutional, or part of a government mandate that just hasn't yet been challenged in court, which legally then would not be enforceable. You can sue your employer for that now.
So if it goes back, so are we getting rid of that you shall not have ex post facto laws? Where does that go?
Funny thing that you mentioned that, because that is exactly one of the very problems with this. So not only does our U.S. Constitution, but also our Michigan Constitution does not allow ex post facto laws, which means you cannot have a law enacted that is retroactive and provides any kind of punishment for people or requirements upon the people retroactively. Because how can a person possibly act in accordance with the law if the law was not the law at the time that they made the act? So a couple of other pieces about that. The U.S. and Michigan constitutions also do not allow for the impairment of contracts. No state shall pass any law impairing the obligation of contracts. U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. Article 1, Section 10 of our state constitution, no law impairing the obligation of contract shall be enacted. Pretty sure if they're getting in between the employer and the employee in that regard, that's impairing a contract. Or if they're saying all of your work, oh, here's the best part. I'm so sorry. I forgot. If you don't get to go to work, right? Or if someone says, I got the symptoms of COVID-19, I'm going to have to call in. The employer is not allowed to punish you or have any kind of ramifications to you. So in other words, if you really can't replace somebody. So if you have your whole workforce out and you're a small or medium business owner, and you have your whole workforce out consistently for 10 to 14 days at a time, each time they have a cough or cold or fever, you're going to have to hire more people, but you can't, because if you're demoting somebody or reducing their hours or terminating them or doing any of those things, then you are going to be considered as punishing them or having some sort of remedial action because they're following the law on COVID. So yeah, that's going to screw people. So anyway, yeah. And so if you're not able to hire new people, then guess what does that mean? You're not going to be able to keep up on your contracts, right? Because you're not going to have the money to pay. And, it just goes on and on. Or you're not going to be able to keep up on your contracts with your customers in the sense that there's nobody there to do the work. You can't produce, what you have contracted to do. Individual equal protection. There are people out there that I would say maybe not even just medically fragile, but just medically predispositioned because, as Americans, there's a lot of people that are very unhealthy. They drink a lot of Diet Coke like I used to. maybe a lot of coffee, maybe a lot of alcohol, smoke a lot, whatever, right? Things that just generally help to make them not as healthy and not able to ward off a lot of those common cold and flu symptoms that we see in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So those people that are more likely to have those kinds of symptoms, like I talked about my husband in the longer video, he often will have these unexplained muscle, aches and things like that. We don't have a medical note for it. He acts like he's 24 and he's not anymore. He's not close to 24. We have a kid that's close to 24. So, again, there's no medical explanation for why he would have those muscle aches, but it just happens, right? So generally my husband gets warmer at night, but his skin always feels warmer than mine. Well, what if it's a day that he just felt slightly warmer than normal to this touch? Is that technically a fever? At what point are they considering it a fever? At what point does he now have a principal symptom of COVID-19? And there's no medical, was he going to go to the doctor and give me a doctor's note that says I don't have COVID-19? And would a doctor want to do that without providing the COVID-19 test? So then we're requiring people to go and take a COVID-19 test, which may, depending on the kind, doesn't it take a few days unless you do the whatever, right? And who's going to pay for that?
And then you get fed into their contact tracing database, and then you start getting into that hole.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on contact tracing. So the individual equal protection element is gone. Also, so those individuals who are generally in poorer health their rights are violated in that way. But businesses have the smaller businesses are more impacted than the large corporations like Walmart or Meijer or whatever. They're going to be able to cover shifts a lot better when you have people out than your small mom and pop shops. So there is a definite equal protection issue there. Due process. You're stopped from going to work? Wait a minute. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's the Fifth Amendment. No state, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The 14th Amendment. In our state constitution, Article 1, Section 17, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. 3 times our constitutions say you can't do this. And yet, businesses have absolutely no say on how many sick days an employee may take, and they may make absolutely no remedial measures to alleviate the problems of chronic absence. So whether it's just one employee that's utilizing this or all of their workforce, and this is all without any kind of day in court. They're not given a day in court before they're anyway. And the law says that it's not just up to $5,000. It says no less than $5,000. Again, there's no ability for the employer to challenge this before they have those kinds of issues. Businesses, if an employee reports health, okay, so here's the wording. If an employee reports health violations related to COVID-19, that's the wording of this law. If the employee reports health violations of what? It doesn't say. That's why I said this whole thing is sketchy. Related to COVID-19, then say to the health department, say, they're not making people wear masks or something like that. Not forcefully taking the temperatures of their employees or customers. Not violating their customers' or employees' rights against unreasonable searches and seizures by participating in the contact tracing or any of that other fun stuff. Then the business is not allowed to fire the employee or even so much as put a disciplinary note in their file for trying to wreak havoc upon the business and all that would entail. You can't defend yourself in any way. You can't separate yourself and say, you know what? Your values as a human being do not comport with the values of us here at our business. We do not participate in violating the rights of our clients or our customers. So you are no longer welcome to work in this environment where you want to bring government interference into the lives of the people that we serve. We're not okay with that. You literally, under this law, you can't do that. And if you do, then again, you're denied a day in court about that. The only day in court you get to have is when the employee is arguing how much money over $5,000 they should get from you. So yeah, these business owners definitely have a due process issue there. And individuals have a property interest in their ability to earn a living. That's been something that's been, put in case law for years and years. But also, again, I talked about all those common symptoms of the cold and flu. So this law literally, it shuts down our state for the duration of the common flu and cold season. And all the employees that are required to stay home under this law are denied any kind of hearing, court proceeding, any day in court before they're stripped of their right to be able to earn a living for themselves. Sorry, Micah, you had something.
Well, that's what it seems like they want to do, is keep us shut down forever. But Jane brought up a good point people are chiming in on. She said, since Michigan is at will state, just wait until they come back and fire them for no reason at all. Can they still do that?
Good point. Actually, I want to say that's something my dad brought up when I first asked him to read this bill. Well, it's interesting because if let's say you either, stayed home because, the 14 days or whatever, or you reported the employer because they weren't forcing people to wear masks or something of that nature. And you were sent home, or whatever, you came back and they just terminated you for no reason whatsoever. I guess that would be interesting. I don't know what that would look like. As far as I recall, the bill doesn't have a presumption that if you're terminated anywhere afterwards, it's deemed as like, they're assuming that it's tied to this, the conditions of this bill. I would think a plaintiff would still have to prove their case that it was in fact because of the, the situation here with this bill, and that's the reason why they were fired. But it's still, why should an employer even have to entertain going to court and hiring an attorney about this?
It's ridiculous. And Julie's asking, would this bill affect a union job where you've got collective bargaining? How does that work?
Oh, it affects everybody. Yep. There's no exceptions for that. And two, quick last pieces. Bill of Attainder, I want you guys to look it up. It's something I didn't really let it sink into me, that I didn't really understand what it meant. It's in our U.S. and Michigan constitutions 3 times. It was important to the founders. You cannot have bills of attainder. What is it? And there's 2 main definitions. One is a special legislative act that imposes a death sentence on a person without a trial. That's more beneficial for, say, the abortion argument, when a child is murdered and they don't even get a trial, but that's neither here nor there for this conversation. The other definition is a special legislative act prescribing punishment without a trial for a specific person or group. So they've already set out the statutory punishment for the employers. That part isn't set with a trial. You have at least $5,000 you're going to be given as a punishment if you violate this law. But what about the punishment of not being able to earn a living for the employee? Mm-hmm. Or what about the punishment of the employer for your staff is out and now you can't fulfill your contracts and your business goes under? That's punishment where there's no trial. So yeah. And then you mentioned ex post facto. Again, 3 times in our constitutions that is written, you cannot enact an ex post facto law. You cannot make something. What's that?
I was gonna say, that would have been like, look at prohibition. This is one everyone knows about. So we had prohibition for several years in this country. That'd be like taking people back that drank alcohol in the 1800s all the way up to the 1920s and now arresting them because during prohibition it's illegal, but they drank 5 years ago. So they're doing the same thing here. They're going back and saying, even if this happened, and here's the thing, that date that you had mentioned previously, that date is before anything was even quote unquote declared. That date that they're allowing you to go back to, and retroactively they can sue you for these damages of something you committed before they, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing. One thing I wanted to point out is Well, I want to point out several things. On my screen here, it lists all of the sponsors of the bill. So for example, I was at an event a week and a half ago, and I was asked to basically be the keynote speaker. I did not realize at the time that a state rep was in the audience. So I started to talk about this bill and tell people how disgusting it was. And I didn't even go into full detail. I went into some detail. Afterwards, some individuals went over to the state rep because they knew he was there. I wasn't there the whole time. I was going right from one thing to another. And so they went up to him and asked him, like, why would you do this? And of course, he gives one of the usual answers that many of these state reps have given over at least the course of COVID-19 when they vote on these ugly bills. Well, we don't have enough time to read all the bills. We go through the legislative analysis. We follow what leadership tells us. We do what the legislative, council tells us, or what the, House counsel tells us. This is what we're doing. Okay, this bill is all of like 2 pages long. There's a little bit of the next page, but again, that's like double spaced. It's really like triple spaced. Okay, so it's really less than 2 pages long. They couldn't have time to read it. Even if it's 300 pages long, then vote no on it. But what was interesting is I was actually having this conversation with a particular individual, and he says, yeah, so I just walked over there. I was talking to the state rep. I asked him, this is what his answer was, that he didn't have time to read it. And I said, you're talking about that guy right over there that I now realize is here? And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's Brad Slay. And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm pretty sure Brad Slay is one of the sponsors of this bill. And he said, are you serious? Jeez. I pull out my phone, look at it, and I go, yeah, his name is right here. And he said, are you kidding me? He told me he didn't have time to read it when he voted on it. But now you're telling me he's one of the people that brought it to the floor of the House in the first place? Yep. Needless to say, that voter was not very happy and went to confront Mr. Slay yet again. So are they not reading the bills? Yes, that's true. Are they lying about their votes? Yes, that's true. Are they, defending these? I didn't watch the video, but I was told that at noon today, Stand Up Michigan did a video with Stephen Johnson and my own state rep, Luke Meerman, who appeared on there and defended these bills and still think that they're apparently okay. Why? I don't know. I mean, honestly, I do not get why this is okay. Is it okay to violate that many, all those constitutional provisions that I just bored you with talking about? Is it okay to violate that many constitutional provisions in 1 2-page bill? No, I don't care if you have a freaking R after your name. You took the same oath of office as the Democrats did. You took the same oath of office as the governor did. Do you think that someone like me or any of these people are just going to go after the governor just because she's a Democrat and she's doing wrong and she's violating her constitutionally protected God-given freedom? No, we're going to go after all of you. If you are going to vote in favor of bills that violate our rights, watch out. You're fair game too. So literally, just so you guys know, like I said earlier, all of the state reps and all of the senators, in fact, let me just scroll down. Let me show you. Right here, when it went back to the House, 101 voted in favor of this bill. Wow. 0 voted no. And not voting was 8. And then when you go up here, where was the Senate one? The Senate one, when it passed, and it was also given immediate effect, 37 yays, 0 nays, 1 excused, and 0 not voting. I mean, no one voted no.
I have a theory, though.
What's that?
I'm not saying this is right. I'm not sticking up for them, so I want to clarify this, but I think I know why. Look, are all of them just 100% traitors? It's possible. But I think what it comes down to is either the public at large in Michigan or the media has made us think that for them to get reelected, they have to, quote, do something. They have to do something about this flu, this plague, whatever you want to call it. So they're thinking to themselves, well, we have to do something or none of us will get elected. So maybe this something here is less than what Gretchen really wants to do. So we'll be able to kind of keep the Republicans happy enough. You see what I'm getting at? Because that's
I
what.
do, but this actually does way more than what the governor was trying to do.
Oh,
So
so I'm not sticking up for them, but what I'm saying is this, and there's so much fake news going on right now. There really is. Every time something comes out and they say, well, there's a recall petition, there's the Restore Freedom petition, all these things, somehow all the newspapers print that Gretchen's approval rating keeps going up and up and up. And then they'll do another poll and say, what is the primary focus right now of the government? And they all say to keep us safe from coronavirus. So that's what there's either that many dumb people in Michigan right now that they're all just running around like sheep saying, protect us, no matter what you have to take as far as our liberties go. Or there's just so much fake news. You know what I'm saying, right?
no, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I run into people on the street, customers and stuff, right? That are begging for this. They're saying, all I know is I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. People have to do something about this. They have to protect us from this. It's just getting to be crazy.
So I'm not sure what this is. Do you know what this is? What was the lie?
Oh, she was talking about, she wasn't calling you a liar. She was talking about something that I forget what the context was, but she wasn't starting anything. I remember that now.
And what was this? Did I miss something?
Yeah, these guys were arguing back and forth like crazy. There's been a lot of trolls in here tonight that I've had to get rid of too. One person did clarify though, a lady named Bonnie. I'm going to find it here. She cited the actual part of the bill, but she said that it does not. Okay, here we go. Bonnie E said House Bill 6032 Section 1C says employees means an individual employed by an employer and whose primary workplace is not the individual's residence. So I guess it wouldn't affect you if you work from home.
Where are they saying that came from?
She's citing it HB 6032 Section 1C.
No. Well, I'll have to find it. Give me a second. I've got way too many cases and statutes and all kinds of fun stuff here.
One Little Lamb left you a super chat. Thank you. You're leaving them for her, guys, not me. I'm just thanking you because she's my friend, and I also donate to Restore Freedom. So
they're saying, oh, they did update that. You are right, because what they had originally, they were talking about the distinction was between, they were basically saying, where is it? They were saying that it doesn't matter if you're an employee or an independent contractor or really just the business owner, you count as an employee. Yeah. That was somewhere, and that was really the only other distinction that had been made before. But no, I'm glad that you caught that because
this is good. It still doesn't matter because people that work from home shouldn't be favored over people that don't. But
that's true. That creates the equal protection argument even more.
Linda just clarified. She said the polling in PA where Biden said he already won, she said that was a lie. So it goes back to picking winners and losers again. And that's all they've been doing, this executive branch, picking certain people to get richer than they ever have before and other people to go virtually bankrupt.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think those are the main things I wanted to address. Was it One Little Lamb? Did he or she have any questions?
No, I think they just donated. I don't see anything with that. Just, yeah, donated $5.
Okay. Hold on here. I can't find the original comment that I clicked on, so I have no idea. How do you take?
If you click on another one, it takes it away, or.
Oh, that's kind of funny. We'll click on that for a minute.
That was funny. I saw that.
So, hopefully that clarifies some big things for you guys, not only about what your rights are tomorrow, but what your rights are in an enduring understanding of going to the polls, whether you're there to vote, whether you're just there to make a political statement. I'm not saying I agree with that. So let's say, for example, the Proud Boys or whomever decides to go to the polls in all their, garb, and they're just standing there to make a statement that you cannot take away their Second Amendment rights. And they're not menacing. They're not talking to anybody. They're not brandishing. They're simply breathing and existing with firearms, lots of them, all over them. That's their right to do that. Whether I agree with it or not is irrelevant. We need to stop living in the world of touchy-feely. This is my opinion. All of my opinions matter. None of your opinions matter, by the way, but all of my opinions matter. And what's that Constitution thing? No, that's just something old and stupid. We don't have to pay attention to that. So just stuff to keep in mind. And, you know, our legislature, I guess the whole reason why I was talking about the House Bill 6032 and the fact that none of the legislators voted against it is it violates so many stinking provisions of the Constitution, state and federal. And instead of any of them standing up and going, you know what, enough is enough. I won't participate with it anymore. You are right. Let's take back our freedom. This is unconstitutional. Let's do something about it. Let's fix this problem now. What do? One of the most conservative rated politicians in the whole legislature for the whole time he's been in, Steve Johnson, went and did a Facebook Live video defending his participation in this. And from what I've seen, I don't really go on social media a ton, but from what I've seen and what I've been told, I should say, is that all over social media, quite a few of these state reps, mostly Republicans, have decided to personally attack me today and over the last few days since I did that video, talking about my credentials or talking about why I'm doing this and that it's, you know, I'm jealous of that the fact that they're a state rep and I'm not, or something stupid like that. You know what? The only thing I'm jealous of, quite frankly, are my friends that already live down in Florida and they get to go to the beach whenever they want. And it's not, 30 degrees there today. Those are the people I'm jealous of. If you think, Michelle Hoitanga, that I'm jealous of you, you're wrong. If you think I'm doing this because of anything else other than the fact that you need to be held accountable, not you as an individual, all of you as individuals who took an oath of office to uphold the U.S. and Michigan constitutions, then you're wrong. God gave us our freedom. You didn't. You have no right to try to just take it away from us like that. You are bound to follow that Constitution. I don't care if you like it or not. And all the Democrats that voted in favor of this in a heartbeat, guess what? All of your fear and all the fear mongering that you're part of perpetrating, you don't get to live based on fear and rule us based on your fear. And you don't get to keep poisoning the minds of all the public and get them so riled up about the COVID-19 deadly virus and trying to get people to support you in your unconstitutional actions and using that fear as a justification for regulating us in a way that violates our constitutionally protected freedoms. Is there a COVID-19 or a pandemic exception in the Constitution? No. And guess what? A federal court already said that. Isn't that great? Federal court already said that. And yet they don't learn. So if you as an individual are sitting out there wondering why girlfriend, you are in so much trouble. What your kids do when you're working. Anyway, if you are out there and you are wondering what it is that you can do as an individual who doesn't normally, you don't check on court cases. You don't go to the legislature's website and hang out on there for a day and check on everything. You're not someone that reads up on all the things that are filed in the Court of Claims or Court of Appeals or Supreme Court. I'm telling you, I'm going to do my best to keep telling you as things are filed, but I need you guys to do me a favor. When I alert you about this stuff, you better light up your legislator. Now, I was accused of inciting violence. Let me be clear. I'm not telling you to go physically intimidate these people or threaten them with physical injury. I'm telling you, you better threaten them with not voting for them if that's what you feel is appropriate. At the very least, telling them that you do not give your permission to them taking such an unconstitutional action, telling them, demanding them to do the right thing and fix this. Constantly conveying that message on, texting or emailing or calling or showing up to their in-office district hours, whatever it is, showing up to the next session of legislature tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday, show up. Sit there with a sign that says, get rid of House Bill, or it's now Public Act 238, get rid of House Bill 6032. Sit there all day, stare them down individually. That is doing the right thing. That is exercising your First Amendment right. That's exercising your rights under Article 1, Section 2 of our state constitution, or Article 1, Section 3 of our state constitution. That's what I'm talking about. Just to be clear, I don't think anybody really thought I was saying that I'm inciting violence here. I'm not. If you commit violence, then you should be held criminally responsible for those actions, right? But do something about it. And don't think that your one voice is not enough. Micah is just a guy who owns a business. I am just a gal who owns a business. We're not multi-million-dollar people here. We don't have power in the world here. We're just on a mission to fight for freedom here in Michigan. If we can do all that we've been doing, you can certainly pick up a phone and call your legislator and call them every day until they fix this. Let them know that's not okay. Tell your neighbor to call them. Tell your friend to call them. Tell everybody to call them. Anyway.
Yeah, and you have a super chat here from C Visions. That was a good one. Said, non-compliance to unjust and immoral laws is a moral person's duty and obligation. I thought that was a good one. You found it. Cool. I liked that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Bible tells you you have to hold the oppressor accountable, that you're supposed to, rise up against and fight against that. You're supposed to fight for the oppressed, right? Well, all the people in the whole state of Michigan that get the common cold. Oh, and by the way, this was interesting. I want to say it was on Mayo Clinic's website. Again, one of the sites that they would use, right, on the liberal left to justify all this stuff with their whatever. It said that the average person in America gets the common cold with all the same symptoms, the same principal symptoms of COVID-19. The average adult gets that common cold about 3 times a year. So 3 times a year, you're going to get the symptoms that they are now saying you now cannot go to work because we know you're going to get it on average 3 times a year for every single person that lives here. Some people get it more. Some people get it less, but that's the average. I don't know. So, yeah, you're right.
I can't wrap my head around it.
No. So you have a duty to not comply with this. Absolutely. And am I going to be the one to file lawsuits about it? I'm sure that question is somewhere in here because I get asked that every time I do a video. I'm working on what that might look like. But let's be honest. As soon as I start fighting one of these lawsuits, where is my attention going to be? My attention is going to be on this lawsuit, right? Because I will have a duty to carry that all the way through, start to finish. I can't just file a brief at this stage if I want to as an amicus and then come in and file a brief at another stage if I want to. And if I don't file a brief before and it moves on to the next stage, then, something terrible has happened. No, the case will still go if I'm an amicus.
Yeah.
But if I'm the main plaintiff's attorney, that's going to be a different story. And I'm one person.
That's the thing. There's usually paralegals, legal clerks, assistants, multiple lawyers. They call them legal teams, right? Usually.
Yeah, I can show you guys my paralegal. Come here. This is my paralegal.
Paralegals make a lot of money, actually.
This is my paralegal. Cutest thing. Right?
How much?
You're my paralegal?
A lot, I would assume.
I pay her with kisses.
Ah, well, that's good.
Okay, you can have your chocolate cereal. Go for it. So, yeah. So it's just a matter of where am I being called to spend that time and energy? I have a lot of other projects that are irons in the fire, so to speak. So, am I going away? No. Am I going to stop fighting for our freedom? Heck no. If there's opportunities presenting themselves to me for additional amicus briefs, would I participate in that? Well, yeah, I will. And I will end up filing cases. But when and exactly which ones and exactly which court would be the best, avenue for fighting for our rights, that I don't know. Yeah. So have you seen any other?
Just people that are all ticked off about this, like a lot of people,
Oh, I'm in trouble. Patrick Nixon's on here. Oh boy, he sent me a long email about when am I going to do some stuff about contact tracing. It's not going to be tonight. I did mention it. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the next comment to come on here about that from him. I will be addressing that. That's the thing, right? Are they allowed to require masks to be mandated? No. But think of how many realms that's coming up in. That's a totally different legal argument, depending on which topic you're talking about the masks are being brought up in. What about contact tracing methods? Writing down your name and your phone number and sometimes additional information about each place you've gone to. And then it says right in these orders that that information then upon request, the business or the school or the other facility must provide the names and phone numbers of individuals with possible COVID-19 exposure to MDHHS and local health departments to aid in contact tracing and case investigation efforts. That's insane. So they can't claim that this is, a private business's policy like they try to, some businesses are trying to claim about the mask issue. That's just not even a thing. But you have those kinds of things. You have you can't even go to work. You have the social distancing. You have all of these, talk about equal protection violations. If you go through this most recent order about gatherings from MDHHS, there's so many different percentages. So the main thrust of this thing is the gathering restrictions for particular types of facilities, it says. If that's not a violation of equal protection, I don't know what it is. Particular types of facilities. So one type of facility, you can't exceed 50% of your total occupancy limits. Another is 25%. Another is 50. Another is 25. Another is 15. Another is 50. I mean, they make it really easy to understand, there's all kinds of good stuff in there. I mean, really. Read this stuff. Read these emergency orders. Read the executive orders that were out. See the similarities. Read the press releases on Michigan.gov that they're doing about this. Read these bills. I will try to put more and more of these right on our website under resources. I haven't put any on there in a little while because, quite frankly, our government started churning out so many unconstitutional things so quickly. I was having a hard time getting up to speed and printing them and reading them before they would do something else, let alone to get them on our website. But even until I get them on there, please try to go to these websites. Please make it a point once a day to at least check it out. So, did anything else come up?
Jane just brought up something. I'm not sure if she's correct, but she said no business is required to be de facto branch of government, period. They don't have to ask, and you don't have to tell.
So essentially, okay, so one thing is the whole point of government is to protect our God-given liberties, right? Against whom? Well, not primarily against them. The whole point of government is to protect our liberties against other individuals. And if you think about it, it's, you can't murder somebody, right? If you murder somebody, the government steps in. That's between two individuals, but the government will step in and correct that injustice, right? They'll put somebody behind bars. That's the whole point of that system of government in that sense. If you look at contracts, if you have a contract between two individuals and you have a full and fair agreement, but one person say takes the car that they're buying, but then they don't actually end up giving the money to the other person who's selling the car, well, there needs to be some way to have that sorted out. And so, some of the most fundamental basic reasons of why we have government. Well, again, there is a concept of liberty in the sense that should the government step in and violate, rights? Yeah, there's been an argument about, is this an impairment of a contract if we have a government step in and say, we're not going to allow you to, say, discriminate? Well, I think hands down, every single person on either side of the political aisle in our country, if you ask the question, is it okay for a business to discriminate based on the color of someone's skin or their gender? I don't know who would raise their hand and say, yeah, that's okay.
And we're going to say no.
So, or is it okay for a business to discriminate, refuse to serve someone, say Menards, because someone was in a wheelchair?
I don't think so.
No. So if those are concepts that, although those are in statute and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The premise is something we understand, that you have to treat people with a certain degree of respect, right? Where you're not having to compromise your own values just to be able to recognize that that person exists and has their own values, right? So is a business allowed to deny you service because you medically cannot tolerate a mask? No. The fact that you need to breathe air as God intended your body to function, how can that be a source of discrimination? Or if you don't want to give them all of your personal identifying information so that you can be tracked down by the government?
Yeah.
No, we have a Fourth Amendment right. That right is not simply, our freedoms are not secured just as against the government. The whole purpose of government is so that we have system to, the government can be there to help us sort through the person against person scenarios that we have, not just person against government. So, I don't know. I know there was something else in there that we were talking about, and that my brain just got stuck on that. So the end.
Somebody does have a common sense question, though. They're saying, but if they do ask and you refuse, can they refuse to serve you? And he's saying not everyone has the ability to just shop somewhere else.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Is it right? No, it's not constitutionally sound. And depending on the reason for their refusal. So, for example, I will say to their benefit, if I want to give them credit at all, in the implementation section of the newest mask order by the Department of Health and Human Services, it says nothing in this order modifies, limits, or abridges protections provided by state or federal law for a person with a disability. So if you are a person who has a medically, like I have a note from my doctor that says I can't wear a mask. So if you have a disability, a medical reason why you cannot wear a mask. Now, should you have to wear a mask at all? No. I'm just boiling it down to some most basic points, because in there, it doesn't require you to give a doctor's note. If you give them a verbal representation that you cannot wear the mask, they have to take that. So can they say to you, we're going to deny you service? What if you don't have a phone number? It says in there, they have to take the name and phone number.
I've noticed a lot of these businesses lately trying to, enforce these edicts. They're actually more jackbooted than the government themselves. They'll just say, you can get the F out, screw you. And then there's like these big guys like this, like muscling you out the door. And I mean, it's amazing how quickly you give someone just a little bit of power. People that don't deserve the power, you give them a little bit, and all of a sudden they want to be conqueror and dictator of the world. It could be the Walmart greeter, the Menards greeter. These people literally think they're the new Mussolini or Hitler all of a sudden. They're just going to march you all off to the gulag, and it's crazy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Is it possible to take this federal under Title 18 USC Section 241 and 242, deprivation of rights? Let's see, which one is it? I want to say it's 242. You need to read that, because 242 is the one that says that's only a deprivation of rights based on the color of your skin or your national origin or your race. I think the very, very limited description. However, 241 is the conspiracy. And that means anytime you have two or more individuals that are acting to conspire to deny someone of their constitutionally protected or statutorily protected rights, then that is a felony. Yeah, that's definitely at issue here. So there's a lot that can be done. I'm trying to not bore people with the law, but yes, it is possible.
That's where it's tough. And I like these common sense questions, because here's what it comes down to. On principle, we should say, if we all boycott this business, some people don't have the means to travel out of their small little town that only has one barber shop or one restaurant,
Right.
It sucks.
It does. It does. I'm trying to figure out what some of these comments are. What? Sorry, that was just too funny not to share.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this person is special. How about I'm not dealing with that. Okay.
Oh, probably another one just slipped in. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I got rid of a bunch of them earlier.
okay, so Patrick points this out, and I don't know if this is accurate. I'm just assuming that he's accurate in this. The thing is, the Justice Department doesn't get to change what a statute says. So I really don't care if the Justice Department says that it doesn't need to be based on racial discrimination or whatever. The Justice Department doesn't get to change the statute. So if Congress changes the statute and the president signs it, then it can open it up to other things. But the statute itself is what it is. I would never advocate that we follow and utilize a tool that has been changed unilaterally by an executive branch member instead of the legislature through the normal process.
Except for what sucks is they always like to cite the Chevron deference where they say the agency's opinion actually overrides what the law itself says on its face. But I don't want to get into that. It's probably too late.
Okay, so the question, wouldn't that be an invasion of someone's privacy, what they do with that information? Exactly, especially with what I just read to you is required under this mask order that they have to turn it over to the government for tracing purposes. Literally, it says right in there, you have to, as a business, take all this information because you then have to turn it over to us so we can do tracing. Anyway.
The Fourth Amendment, securing your effects and papers, violates that, if you ask me.
Oh, Governor Whitmer. Here is something too. Masks are against my religion. Yes, masks are against my religion as well. I will not put a mask on my child. Number one, because God tells us we need to be out in fellowship and open communication with people and to, we're made in his likeness and we're not supposed to just cover that up. Our faces are meant to be exposed and part of communication and a part of, growing with people in our communities. So no, that's, we can't cover masks or cover our face with masks. But the other thing is kind of going along with this comment, if you are sick, then wear a mask. Well, the problem is I won't allow my child to wear a mask because the experts in the field, as well as the CDC itself and all those other entities out there tell us what they're seeing is actually people who are wearing the masks all the time are the ones that are getting sick. They're not just getting sick from COVID-19. They're getting sick from COVID-19 in far higher rates than people that are not wearing masks. But they're also seeing people that are wearing masks are getting sick from all kinds of other bacterial infections in their lungs, in their gums, at their teeth, all over their face. That's just disgusting. And it's because you're not designed to have to wear a mask all day long like that. It's not even clean. So if you are sick, and let's say you have the common cold, just as an example, and then you feel like, oh, I better go wear a mask, I'm going to say no. My request of you is no. And I'm working with some actual medical providers from a variety of legal or medical perspectives to come together and provide that information directly to you. Several of them have already gotten back to me, and I'm waiting on a couple of others. But so you're going to see it's not me the attorneys saying that. It's doctors, it's expert immunologists and epidemiologists and emergency room physicians and, PAs that own their own medical practices and you name it. PPE experts, the very people that we should be listening to on this stuff, not just government officials and whatnot. So,
yeah.
Are there any cool. All right. So it looks like we really answered all the questions. I really appreciate you guys being on here.
Yeah, I think so.
So obviously it's always much longer than I anticipate, but hey, it is what it is. We're getting information out there. So make sure, guys, above all else, do not let any government official or a collection, such as the entire legislature, do not let any government official tell you that you are too stupid to read the laws yourself, that you are too stupid to read the Constitution yourself, that they are smarter than you and they know that what they're doing is okay and you have no right to question them. Do not ever buy into that. In fact, if they start telling you that, you know they're doing something wrong. You better be standing up to them even firmer than you were going to do so before. This is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. This is not a government of attorneys. It's not a government of politicians. This is a government of the people. It's time we stand up and take our government back. I can't do this alone. Mike and I are both very cool, very smart individuals, of course, but we can't do it alone either. We can't do it as a team. We need all of you to stand up and do your part. Even if you don't live in Michigan, if you're down in Ohio or you're over in California, well, if you're in California, that it's probably a lost cause over there, but anywhere else in the country, step up and assert your freedom. And are some of you going to receive harsher criticisms or, side effects or consequences because of it? Yeah. Don't assume my life has been easy in taking this fight on either. But it's time that we have to fight now, because if you don't, because it's easier right now, let's fast forward 6 months. Where are we going to be? You're just going to let me and the two of us here, you're going to let us take all the heat. And what if we just throw our hands up and go, it's not our problem. I'm going to Florida. I don't know. Are you going to come with me?
Yeah, we're going to go out to the ocean, guys. You're stuck here.
Yep. Then those of us who have been putting in all the fight, we're going to go finally take that vacation, and we might not come back. And all of our families are packed up and ready to go. Where does that leave you? No, you got to fight now. Don't depend on other people to do it for you. I'm here to help guide you. And that's what Mike is doing too. He's here to guide you so you know how to exercise your rights and how to take responsibility for your own freedom.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are getting it, and it is encouraging. A lot of good people in the chat tonight.
All right. Awesome. So this is the awkward part. So I'm going to ask my Jedi instructor here So can I hit the end broadcast button, and then you and I can still figure out the logistics behind the scenes?
Yeah, I was just going to tell everyone real quick, I'll be back on my channel at 9:30 p.m. this Friday, Eastern time. So that's usually when I stream. 9:30 every Friday.
All right, guys, you heard it. And if you have additional questions, I'm sure, be back on at some point in the next few days. Especially with the election happening. I'm sure there will be more things happening, even just with that alone. So, oh, that is so special. Is this a neutral?
Oh, geez. I just clicked out of the chat too. I didn't know they came in this late.
I'm not sure. I guess we could just give that guy a chance to see if he's maybe telling somebody else that they suck. But anyway. All right, guys. Did you go back in?
No, I clicked off of that part
Okay.
when I was.
All right, guys. Thanks, everyone. Make sure you do go vote. Have a wonderful night.